Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature, picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels too. Whether you're an adult reading to your inner child or connecting the young readers in your lives with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. Each week, we'll talk to a different children's literature author and discuss their books, their hopes and dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. So, grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Liana Finck. Liana is a cartoonist, illustrator, and regular contributor to The New Yorker, where she also authors the Dear Pepper Advice from a Dog column. She's written and illustrated multiple books, including How to Baby, Let There Be Light, Passing for Human, Excuse Me, and You Broke It. She's here today to talk about her newest release, Mixed Feelings. This picture book explores the nuance of feelings young readers experience in a uniquely validating and heartfelt way. I'd add that many adult readers will also find their feelings validated in this book too, and so I can't wait to chat. Liana, welcome to the KidLit Love podcast. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie. I'm so happy to be here.
I think that your book just acknowledges the multitudes of humans, right? We all have multitudes of identities, of ideas, especially of feelings. I just love how in your book, there's just permission for all of us and all the pieces of us to coexist.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. But before we get to the book, I'd love for you to start with you, because you have such a beautiful artistic background. And I would love for you to talk about your journey to KidLit and here today publishing another children's literature book.
Thank you so much. I like how you described the book. I think that's very accurate, and I wouldn't have had those words. Well, I guess to go all the way back, I started with kids' books. I was a big kids' book reader when I was a little kid. And I think I just like never stopped thinking that was my passion. It did morph into wanting to do cartoon. Like I started thinking, what is the version of this for adults? So I became a cartoonist and a graphic novelist. I did take a detour into art school, which I don't know if that was a good idea. The jury's still out. I'm not much of a crafts person, and I'm definitely not someone who loves to make very giant work, which is what we were doing in art school. But yeah, that I quickly found my way back to cartooning and graphic novels. But all along, I've been trying to make kids' books, and they're shockingly tricky to make. You have to have kind of an open heart in order to make one. And it just finally clicked, and I want to keep making them. I love them, and I love reading them. I have a 3-year-old, so I'm very lucky I get to read them all the time.
Yeah. And you say, I stalked your website a little bit, of course, in preparation for the episode. And something I love that you say, and actually it may not be on your website, it may be on the jacket of the book, is that you are a grown-up who remembers how it feels to be a kid. And I feel like that is the number one qualification for a children's literature author.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a lot of feelings as a kid, and I'm really interested in memory. I had like kind of a perfect memory until my teens, and now I don't have a great memory, but like my memory disappeared like late enough in life that it's still kind of like the vibe is still with me. Like I knew like when I was 15 or so, I knew exactly who I was when I was 1 and 2 and 3. And I kind of miss those memories, but I think they're still there. And I was super shy. I a lot of my memories had to do with like, why are these giant people like forcing me to sing? And why are these other kids who are sane people like me, like agreeing to like sing and do demeaning things?
That sounds a lot like the thoughts I had as a child. I
Really?
was super shy too. I would do anything to get out of everything so I could just be by myself and read
Yeah.
a book and write in
Yeah.
my notebook. So yeah, kindred spirits for sure,
I,
Leanne.
I pretended I got kicked out of my preschool for pretending to be a dog, and that I thought that was going to work and I would get out of doing all this stuff, but it actually got a lot more attention on me. And that's kind of like a recurring vivid mistake that I would always make.
Yeah. I can't
Get
believe you
more
said that.
attention.
Oh, my son, when he was 2, um, as an educator, we were always constantly doing book things and arts and craft things and imagination things. And when he was 2, he did go to a really small preschool program, like 2 days a week. And he got kicked out because he refused to color his school bus yellow. And he
Oh, he's
threw a temper
amazing.
tantrum. He threw a fit because it was purple and he wanted it to be purple. And when I went to pick him up, she said that I might reconsider preschool until he was older and better
Oh,
able to work in the school setting. And I thought, oh my gosh, he just wants a purple school bus. What is the problem? Yeah, so I can
yeah,
understand, that little
yeah.
story. And I think,
So relatable. And I'm
yeah,
so angry. I would have hoped things had changed.
yeah. Well, he's 20 now, so let's hope it
Yeah.
it has. But it really, for me, it was okay, what do we define as creativity? How do we define art? How do we let kids feel the way they want to feel about a purple school bus?
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to share with listeners too, in case they don't know, you have this beautiful TED Talk about life being hard and art helps, right? I'd love for you to say a little bit about that and how that has influenced your journey and leading you to these books.
Oh, let me try to remember. That TED Talk was very well, it was based on two things. One, my Instagram, where a little less now than I used to, but I used to be posting just constantly, kind of like where autobiographical meets universal. I would make these drawings just to figure out every little thing that I was trying to work out in my life, and it really helped. So art did help, and maybe I'm posting less because I have fewer pressing emotional issues I need to deal with. Um, but then it was also about this book I wrote called Let There Be Light. That's a graphic novel that's an adaptation of the book of Genesis with a shy female god, like a shy female creator, like all gods are a creator, but the point is that she's like a woman role model for me as an artist creator. Um, and I needed that role model. So
Yeah.
yeah, art helped me, and it helped me to imagine a lineage for myself as a creator. I hope that makes sense. Kind of jumps.
It
It's
does.
made sense somehow.
Yeah, no, it does. And I love how you said like it was the art, it was the drawing that helped you kind of work things out because sometimes
Yeah.
like it's just you have to get the feelings out somehow. And for some words work and others drawing works and others
Yeah.
collage works or mixed media works or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And so I can
I think
really appreciate that.
for me, it's somewhere in between words and images. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of diagrams and symbols. Like I think all my drawings are like fall into that category, and all my words also fall into that category. Um, but it really was just like working stuff, like working out how to deal with an angry stranger on the subway in a diagram. And like once you figure it out, it's a lot easier when that happens again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful segue to start talking about the book because the book is about feelings and the range of feelings that we can have. So I mentioned the title is Mixed Feelings. It already has a beautiful Publishers Weekly starred review, even though it was just out a couple of weeks ago. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And, as the title reveals, it's about not just feelings, but the multitude of feelings, the mixture of feelings, this wide range of feelings that perhaps can jumble in on us at the same time, at times that we don't expect them or want them. And so I'd love for you to tell listeners who have not read that picture book yet a little bit of what the book is about. And I think I might know what you say, but the inspiration behind it. But now I feel like I've got a bit of backstory about how your brain works, and that's how it arrived on the page.
Yeah, exactly. The book is about the different feelings. I'm calling them layered feelings, but that's a very scientific way of describing it, which is to assume that like every feeling can be pieced apart into little feelings that make sense. And that is kind of the point of the book. But now that I'm really remembering being a kid, I still think there's something like mystical and just more intense than explanation to the feelings kids have. And I think the book honors that too. It like each spread is, which is 2 pages, is a um like an ode to a complicated feeling, complicated and strong feeling that a kid can have. And there's one character I relate to the most, which is this very shy character. And I think the first feeling she has is shy, but not sure why. And for me, that was pervasive because I was really shy, but I don't know if that was stronger than the feeling of self-consciousness about being shy. Like, why can't I make eye contact? Why is that making more people look at me? Which is exactly what I don't want. The fact that I can't make eye contact.
Yeah.
And yeah, and those two feelings are just like so combined and just can't be taken apart.
Yeah. There's like mostly happy, but a little bit sad.
Yeah,
And like
I think
trying
that's a
really
real
hard
advantage.
to have fun. Like there's, yeah, these
Mhm.
juxtapositions of feelings that we all feel that usually, I think we just learn this as kids, and I know certainly still do it as an adult, is that you have your feelings, and typically there's one that maybe feels acceptable in the moment and the other one that for whatever reason doesn't, and we often try to push one of them away. And like you just said, it's when you push one away or overthink that one because you feel like you shouldn't have it, it just comes back to you
Yeah.
magnified. You can't get rid of it. And that's why I love that your book is just very clear of, yeah, we're complicated and we can feel more than one thing. And every single spread I feel like is so relatable, not just to a child, but likely some adults who can make some connections to themselves too.
Yeah, I think personally, as I get older, I can pretend that I have fewer feelings, but I think I'm just too busy to notice them. And maybe it's even more helpful now to be reminded that I'm having them. Because
Yeah.
when I was in my 20s and kind of single and less busy, the feelings were there and I didn't have to be reminded. Like it was a full-time job to pay attention to them, but I miss them
That is
and they
such
are
a
still
good
there.
point. Yes, that is such a good point. And that's why I love children's literature, especially picture books for a whole bunch of reasons. But I just wholeheartedly believe that adults still need to be reading children's literature and especially
Yeah.
picture books. They're like little life coaching lessons in a portable container that adults can just take in one sitting and soak it in and feel, that something could apply to them. And I feel like Mixed Feelings is definitely a book that will make adults feel like you're speaking to them. At least
Yeah.
I felt like you were speaking to me as much as you were speaking to your young readers.
Yeah, I feel like kids' books are for everyone, and so I hope to make kids' books that feel like they're for everyone. Then I feel like they're kind of like poetry, but less obscure, which is very good for the times we live in. We're not really into obscurity right now. And also the images it's just so important to have like, there's not enough room for drawings in the world, and drawings they come right out of you and they bypass the kind of like the word, like something about words kind of flattens people and everyone uses the same words, but everyone's pictures are different.
Oh, I hadn't quite thought of it that way. You're right. We will all, even a stick figure will look slightly
Yeah.
different based on
Yeah.
on how we draw that.
there's something really raw about drawing. I'm a big proponent of very simple, not necessarily simple, but very rough, like rough drawing that comes right out of you and isn't polished.
Yeah.
I
So
think it says a lot about you.
what would you say? And I want to ask you about the creation of those images for the book, but what would you say to someone who's listening to us right now? And we're talking about drawing and the uniqueness and the thought that people can just come out with those drawings in nicely nuanced way, and they say, "But Liana, I can't draw." What would you say to a young child or even an adult who feels like that kind of expression is just not available to them?
I'm of two feelings. The TED Talk we were talking about says everybody should be drawing.
Yep.
Secretly, I think everybody should be expressing themselves, and different brains work really differently. And some people are music people, and some people are painting people. And like, even I say I'm a big proponent of drawing rough. That's how my brain works. Other people are like meant to draw very like polished, and that's just what they're supposed to do. But
Yeah.
everyone needs to express themselves.
So really the only way to figure that out is to give it a try and
Yeah.
not tell ourselves that we can't, but we're just in the process of figuring out the way that works for us.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're all always figuring it out.
Yeah.
But
And
like my son's not a drawer. It's fascinating. He's super creative. He sings constantly and he makes things, and he's kind of like a painter.
yeah. So he's got the creativity in the genes. It's just the medium that's
Yeah.
a little bit different.
I think he got his dad's creativity. His dad's a painter.
So let's talk about those drawings in your book. I'm lucky we get to talk about the book and the text itself, but since you are the illustrator, I get to pick your brain about those as well. I love, and I imagine there's, you know, reasons that you make choices the way you do in a book, but I love that there's this beautiful amount of white space that goes across that double page spread. And
Yeah.
then there is this beautiful, real kind of line art with these little pops of color that just make those, I don't know, they just make them stand out so real and jumping off the page. I'd love to hear you talk more about your style and about how you brought that to life on the page.
I'll give you a really nuanced answer. So that involves some technology problems. I was living in Berlin when I drew these, and I made them. My vision was to make something really detailed. I don't know what it was. It was something about being far away from home and just wanting to kind of tunnel into an image, which isn't usually the way I work. It's usually like very outward. But this time I wanted to tunnel, and I made them very nuanced. And I I think I lost the originals after having scanned them, and it turned out later that the scanner was having problems and they looked bad. So they were all redrawn a bit simpler.
Oh,
Um,
no. I mean, the
but
finished effect is wonderful, but I can imagine how that must have felt.
it felt mixed. I'm someone who loves to do a lot of drafts of things, so I'll never feel bad about having to do another draft. But I also think drawing really detailed doesn't lend itself to many drafts, and it was an interesting new thing I was exploring. But I will again. As for the color, it's the art director, Maria. I think it's Elias. It might be Elias. I need to now ask her. I'm so embarrassed, but she's incredible at Penguin Rise. Helped me with the color and also with the white space and the words. And she has a great eye, and I really appreciate it. I think in a way, design stuff is better if it's done by someone who's not illustrating, who's a little farther away from a project. But I'm a really big fan of design stuff and like the fonts that are used and things.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I just loved the feel of it all, the feel of the font, the feel of the line. With that white space, I could envision the action and the feeling of what was going on the page. It was just so unique, you know,
Yeah,
and for good reason. Your technique is unique. And I did just love the feel of the book. I love the cover too.
thank
I,
you.
for whatever reason, have always been obsessed with circles and symmetry, and things have to be just so. I'm very type A and very organized. So I have always loved circles, but I love how those circles were kind of interlapping to show
Mhm.
that mixed feelings and how things are just always intertwined. And so I just had to tell you, it's one of my favorite covers. I loved it.
Thank you. I think it qualifies as a Venn diagram. I really
Yes.
like Venn
The English
diagrams.
teacher, the educator in me was like, look at that Venn diagram with the overlaying of the feelings. Yeah.
I do a lot of Venn diagrams.
So are all of your images or kind of the way you worked a typical, or I should say traditional kind of pencil paper, medium to paper over digital,
No,
or do you mix and match too? Do you have mixed media that you work with?
I don't really mix media. I've tried to do digital. I have a lot of trouble thinking when I'm drawing digitally, and I think it has to do with not having the proportions right in front of me. Like with an iPad, you don't know the size in this really fundamental way, and you can't just fix it to be like actual size. I hope they fix that bug and maybe it will make it easier for me. But I do paper. I draw on printer paper. I use this Muji pen that's a 0.38 gel pen that's like now not in use anymore in the US. So I like have ordered a lot of them from Asia and I'm just waiting for them all to dry up and I'll have to choose a new pen. Um, but yeah, I don't know what it is. I hold a pen funny. This pen really works for me. I really like it. It kind of gets the wiggles out. I draw pretty small. I draw with my fingers as opposed to with my wrist, which is something I really notice about how people draw. And then painters use their arm.
Right.
And I do a lot of drafts. So I kind of like sketch out a shape before I let myself get into the details. The details are what I really love. I love facial expression and body language and stuff. Not that I draw details, but I love kind of just the getting the nuance right of like how an arm is moving or something, even if the arm doesn't really look like an arm. And in order to do that, I often use a light box or like a light pad, and they've gotten pretty cheap. You can buy them on the internet. They're LED. So I sometimes use those, sometimes I'm lazy and I don't use a pencil because erasing through pen on this printer paper smudges it. But I would like to, that would work instead of the light pad.
That's so interesting. First of all, I am such a pen nerd and paper nerd. So the fact that you just showed me your very unique pens that you love, I won't buy one because I want you to have them all, but I am going to go online and take a look at what it is.
They've changed the formula and I believe the new one works for everyone except me. It's like slightly longer and I hold the pen so angled that it like skips when I use it.
Yeah, I know. It's so we can get so connected to our favorite things, and when things
Yeah.
change, it's like, that's another like mixed feeling, right? It's you're happy that there's new things, but
Yeah.
you miss your old.
Yeah. I have a lot of shame for my need for routine, but it is there.
So I'm a huge fan of Gretchen Rubin, and she talks about personality types, and upholders, which I am, are those that, meet their inner and outer expectations, and they do so through order and routine and
Yeah.
calendars and lists. And I love her take on it because it is such a positive trait that she says, just harness it. Like, don't it's okay to be exactly who you are if you like lists and organizations and calendars and those things make you happy. So no shame. I just like you be you, I'm going to be me, and we're kindred spirits. So we get both of each other right now in those areas.
I like order too. It's like late onset for me. Were you always that way?
Always.
I
Always.
think it happened for me when I started living with like these younger male roommates.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
With two teenage boys, I can totally imagine how that need for order would happen.
Yeah. And it's never gone away.
Well, and now with kids, that
Yeah.
usually kicks in at another
Yep.
level when you're in
It comes
charge of
in
other
handy.
humans.
Yeah. And I'm slowly training my husband to be orderly.
Yeah, that takes longer.
And it's working.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So another thing, another kind of statement about your work that I really loved was that you use your adult privilege to validate children everywhere. I loved that statement.
That's so great. I
It
don't think I wrote that.
Well, it's if it captures you, I think the essence of what that is just beautiful. And it just goes back to how you said you're a grown-up who remembers how it is to be a kid. And so you're writing for that, for that particular population. And so I'd love to ask if you're working on any other children's literature that maybe we can expect from you in the future.
I don't have a new kids book coming, but I can't wait to make one. But I do have a book kind of about kids that I collaborated on with the writer who I adore, Sarah Manguso. It's called Questions Without Answers. And Sarah collected these questions that children have asked. And I like 4-year-olds say, like ask their parents, like I'm trying to think of a question in the book, but I will instead tell you one that my son keeps asking me, which is when the Nutcracker turns from a nutcracker into a boy, does he have lips or does he still not have lips? But I illustrated the like the ones in the book are more haunting and sad and cosmic for the most part. Some of them are very funny, but I illustrated them and I love this book and it's coming out, I believe, in April.
That sounds like a book I would love. As a mom, as an educator, you tend to collect some of the sayings and some of the questions that you get asked. And so I imagine I would I would probably picture certain kids in my mind and think of my own questions that they have asked. That sounds like a lovely book. Oh,
Yeah.
how about where listeners can find you if they want to get their hands on this book? I will make sure to put the link to Mixed Feelings in the show notes. But what if they want to follow you and your work and learn more and get any updates? Where's the best place to find you online?
I think everything's on my website, which is my name, lianafinck.com. FINCK, LIANAFINCK. I do a weekly Substack. I do Instagram posts still. I'm often in the New Yorker with a cartoon. What else do I do? And I have a bunch of graphic novels.
So we've got a backlist that we could dive into if Mixed
Yeah.
Feelings is our first introduction to you.
Oh, and I have one other kids book that's called You Broke It that came out last year.
Well, I love that it's not your first book for kids and you don't think it'll be your last too, even though your next one will be adult. I look forward to seeing the other books that I can continue to relate to.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. I loved your questions.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you coming on, spending time with us, talking about Mixed Feelings. And now as we sign off, I'm going to go check out your pen.
Yeah. It's the Muji Gel Pen 0.38.
I've got it down. So thank you again. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of KidLit Love. And I will see you in the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.